We were approached by Shark Tank. A producer called me, and I thought it was a joke. It was like, as Mark Burnett, I'm the producer of Shark Tank. Would you like to be on the show? And so I Googled him at the same time, like, oh, wow, this is really the executive producer of Shark Tank. And I said, I thought you had to audition for Shark Tank. And he said, no, mostly you do. But there are a few products out there that we look at that are super interesting, have a great story like yours. And we had a good business going at the time. So we were like, well, should we do this or not? Pretty quickly, it's like, well, it's probably worth just the publicity. And so we decided to do it. Got all our ducks in a row, got our presentation down. You've spoken to other entrepreneurs as well who've been on Shark Tank. You go up there for a long time. You're up for almost an hour. It all down to 7 minutes. You got to deal with Kevin O'Leary, who has now a small portion of the company, and who's been great in terms of marketing and selling our brand. When you walk down the aisle and the doors open and the sharks, it looks exactly like it does on TV. It's a rush. I'm really glad I did it. We always did well in altitude. Vail, Aspen, Breckenridge, Telluride. And Sports Authority was our biggest main account. We wanted to branch out, and Shark Tank came calling. We had a nice bump from there. Big break was COVID. Countries were running out of oxygen. We sold out in 3 days. Make sure you have the finances to do it. We bootstrapped it in the beginning with my beer business, and you have expenses. You have living expenses. You have car expenses. Kids on the way. Like, it's super stressful when you don't have resources to live. Make sure you have the financial wherewithal to start something, and whatever ramp up you have in terms of becoming profitable, and you got to take a pen and paper and just, it's okay. This is what I need to live. This is how I'm going to get that money to live. This is how much, and how long can I do this for until I got to give it up. All of Europe is very simple. They recognize what oxygen is. Most countries actually throughout Asia. The Middle Eastern countries are a little bit more difficult. The hardest country, curious enough, and maybe some of your listeners would know this, is Canada. Since we're not a labeled drug in the United States, Canada will not let us in. And we've got a lot of customers that would love to have us in Canada. Another interesting story. Oxygen, supplemental oxygen, is a prescription drug. And we were selling it without a prescription, same way they do in Germany and the Czech Republic. But we were selling something called aviators breathing oxygen. It's the same thing as medical oxygen, just doesn't have any humidity in it. You can buy aviators breathing oxygen without a prescription. You just go to a pilot store. We knew what we were doing was legal, but we weren't sure the FDA would think the same thing. Before you bet the farm on something, you want to make sure that it's legal. So we got a knock on our door 5 years after we had started from the FDA. The open book, we're on the internet, we're selling at Sports Authority at the time. The officer left after 5 days, and as long as you don't make medical claims, then we have no problem with you selling it. That was kind of like my tacit approval to dive headfirst into it. Selling not that many cans for the first 5 years. Profitable, but like more of a hobby. So once the FDA said we were okay to do it, get this thing up and running. About a year passed, we got a knock on our door from the Department of Transportation saying that we had an illegal canister, that we could not ship oxygen in a steel canister. And sorry, but you're pretty much out of business. In the Czech Republic and in Germany and all, they have steel canisters, and so we had to apply for a special permit. They allowed us to sell the stock down of those original peppermint and menthol eucalyptus, and we had to apply for a special permit. Allowed us to package not in steel canisters, but in aluminum canisters. So people with medical conditions that require medical oxygen, this is not for them.
Yeah.
That being said, if you're an older person and you're out of breath because you're climbing or hiking, and you want to catch your breath faster, that's when you use it. If you're playing a sport and you've had maybe soccer, you've run up and down the field sprinting 4 or 5 times, and you need a breather, right? A breather takes some oxygen, you get your breath back faster. Supplemental oxygen will help you restore your breath faster. And it's great for hangovers, and it's great for a lot of different things, and that's what it's used for in Las Vegas. But too much is that you can't overdose on oxygen. And I love competition. I'm a competitive person. I love competition, but I like fair competition. It seems like our competitors, they come and they just try to siphon off of what we do. They make medical claims. They ship the product illegally. They use steel canisters. They target us, on all sorts of online platforms, and it's frustrating. They're doing things that we would be shut down for doing, but when they want to try to develop a market, great, but just do things the right way and don't skirt laws and make the industry look bad. A lot of time and effort, you know, uh, building trust, and trust is easily eroded. There's 21% oxygen in the air that you breathe. At altitude, there's less, maybe 18%. If you have just a little less oxygen or a little bit more oxygen, you feel it. People are like, oh, I'm breathing oxygen right now. I don't need oxygen. And many times they're right. You don't need oxygen, but oxygen has efficacy. 95% pure oxygen. If you go to the hospital and you go into surgery, they put oxygen on you. They don't put air. So oxygen is just good for health.